Good afternoon, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. Today's video is going to be how to remove and replace the main battery from a 2016 Ford Transit Connect. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we get started, guys, we should talk about what battery needs to go in there. There are two different battery sizes that can go in. There's a couple different reference numbers that get used for battery sizes, but what we're going to talk about is the fact that this is a 91R. Now, the OEM battery is a 40R, but it turns out a 40R and a 91R are basically the same size, and the 91R has a little bit more cold cranking amps, so about that. The R is important because it means the position of the terminals is switched. Normally, positive would be on the left, negative on the right, but on R batteries, they are flip-flopped to line up with how the room inside the engine and accessibility and whatnot. So you're either going to need a 40R or a 91R. I have read that a 96R will work, but it's a taller battery, so it's a very, very tight fit. So I chose not to go down that road. My local auto parts store had both the 40R and the 91R, and I went with the 91R because it had handles. The 40R did not. So about a week ago, my wife came to me and said, hey, the van's it's cranking funny. So I checked into it, weak battery. Seems to only want to charge up to about 10.5 volts. So I tried a couple of different tricks, but the long story short is I think there's an internally shorted cell in the battery, and we need a new one. But anyone who's either done this job already on this van or has owned a van in the past, a modern minivan I should say, knows that getting these batteries out is a job. So I wanted to go ahead and make a video about how to do it because it is somewhat involved and it's a little bit of a lengthy process. It's not as simple as, say, my truck over here where you can have the battery out in under 5 minutes, or the Miata, or the Vandura, or my other truck, or that truck. All of them, it's easy to get the battery out. This guy, not so much. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first thing that needs to happen from a room perspective is the air intake needs to come off. So this is also, thought that was an 8. It is not an 8, it's a 7. But this is going to need to come undone. Actually, this end, no, sorry. This end over here, it's looks like from the camera's perspective it's a little bit hidden, but it's going to be right here. So a flat-bladed screwdriver will get it done, or a 7mm will get it done. We need to, just for moving things around, we got to disconnect the mass airflow sensor, the MAF. So pull out the tang, push down, pull back. That comes off. We're going to need to disconnect I think this is PCV. So squeeze the green tabs and pull. That comes off. And then this one, let's see if I can zoom in here. There we go. Spin it around a little bit. So you're going to want to slide the retainer out of the way. Then you'll pull and wiggle for that one, like that. Pop it back in when you're done. So that gets all of this out of the way. So now we can come in with that flathead or that 7mm right here, and then we'll be able to wiggle this air hose off. Alright, got my screwdriver. Kind of loosen this up. I know you can't see it because the PCV's in the way, but it's pretty straightforward. So we get that loose. And then what we also need to do is there are a pair of clamps. One of them is right there. So pop that loose. There is one on the other side. Probably can't really see it. There we go. So you're going to want to pop that one loose as well. Once you've got them loose, this side has tabs that slide into the frame, so you're going to pull out and then up so you can get this out. But before you can do that, you have to grab this side and pull it off, which it shouldn't be a problem to do that, providing that you loosen up the clamp. And with that, zoom out again, whole thing comes out. If you have not changed out your air filter, now's a great time because you're already there. But now that this is out of the way, we can actually get started with the pulling of the battery. Okay, so battery is here if you've never actually messed with your battery at all. It sits here. It has two covers across the top. This one is easy to get to, and then there's one that is under, actually up kind of back here, that you need to get to. So battery is now revealed. We're going to want to disconnect the positive as we are working on this. We don't want to run the risk of zapping ourselves while we're doing this, and the battery will be disconnected long enough that it's going to reset your electronics inside. So just remember that you're going to have to go in, reset the clock, and a couple other things after all is said and done. But this should be is it an 8 or a 10? That's a 10. So you're going to need a 10 millimeter ratchet for right here. You loosen this up, and then you should be able to wiggle the positive terminal off and then set it out of the way. Because what we actually have to wind up doing here is we have to deconstruct the battery box. We have to take it apart. So and it's been a while since I've done this, but there should be a bolt. You can see it. I'm pointing, it's a nut with my finger. And I'm pretty sure that has to come out. I'm also pretty sure this little guy right here has to come out. And then that lets you slide this side of the battery box out. And then you also are going to have to, and I'll get to it here in a minute, but there's the battery hold down itself, which you can kind of barely see. It's right here. And I'll bring you in a moment for that. And there's two bolts there, and then that has to come out. And once you have this off and that off, you can kind of pull the battery forward and get it out. But you're also going to have to pull it forward enough to disconnect the negative terminal. But I think what we'll do to avoid that problem is we'll disconnect the negative over here. And then we'll just pull it out with the negative attached, and then we'll put it all back together on the new battery. So this is a 10. So you can just loosen this up. You don't even have to fully take it out. It's just you need enough to wiggle this terminal off. So now the terminal's off. And the nut should not come off. So that's done. And then I'm going to get it this guy. That's probably, it's going to be a deep well 12. You get it that guy? Because your alternative is, well, let's see. Okay, you could also do it that way. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Camera's going to do weird things for a second. Let's see. All right. So there's the hold down clamp that I mentioned. It's got to come out. And here is the wire. It goes from the actual negative terminal of the battery. And then it comes over to where you actually normally do your charging and your testing over here, where it's easier to get to. So as long as you pop open that little wire router over there, that wire guide, this should, get my finger out of the way, this should still slide forward, and you can leave this in and just slide this forward, and you can take the negative terminal off. I think we'll do it that way, so that's just one less thing we got to take apart, one less thing to worry about. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, oh yeah, I remember now. I believe, yeah, we'll get to that. I'm going to go ahead and take the battery hold down off. Let's see, those look like they're 10s, so you'll need to sneak in there with a ratchet, get them out. So this is a 10. So you can just loosen this up. You don't even have to fully take it out. It's just you need enough to wiggle this terminal off. So now the terminal's off. And the nut should not come off. So that's done. And then I'm going to get it this guy. That's probably, it's going to be a deep well 12. You get it that guy? Because your alternative is, well, let's see. Okay, you could also do it that way. Let me show you what I'm looking at. The camera's going to do weird things for a second. Alright. So there's the hold down clamp that I mentioned. It's got to come out. And here is the wire. It goes from the actual negative terminal of the battery, and then it comes over to where you actually normally do your charging and your testing over here, where it's easier to get to. So as long as you pop open that little wire router over there, that wire guide, this should, get my finger out of the way, this should still slide forward, and you can leave this in and just slide this forward, and you can take the negative terminal off. I think we'll do it that way, so that's just one less thing we got to take apart, one less thing to worry about. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, oh yeah, I remember now. I believe, yeah, we'll get to that. I'm going to go ahead and take the battery hold down off. Let's see, those look like they're 10s. So you'll need to sneak in there with a ratchet, get them out. Okay, remembered how to do it. Here's what we do. There is kind of a strap clip here. You're going to pull that loose all the way. So there's two pieces to this, right? And then over here, this is all just, it's pushed to fit. So you just kind of give it a tug, and out it will come. Still caught on something. There it goes. Okay. There's our air box, the other half of it. And if you ever wondered what that looked like, now you know. But now I can see this a little bit better, and I'm glad that I did not undo these. These are, that's a ground. That's a very big one. And so those are actually power connections. So I gotta remember how you take this apart. Let me stare at this. Alright guys, I remember how to do this. So the key is right here. The front, or I guess rear side of the battery box, depending on how you want to look at it, it sits with a little clip here and over here. So if you lift it up kind of like that, you can pull it apart at either side and then swing it out of the way. So let me set the camera up so I can show you that. Alright, so let me see how this is going to work. So we lift up kind of pull that to the side, and there it goes. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of heavy, let me zoom out so you can see. There's a lot of heavy wiring through here because it's, well, it's the battery. So you're gonna have to be careful, and you're gonna have stuff catching that doesn't want to go, doesn't want to move. And your choices at this point are you can, so it looks like what doesn't want to go is this guy down here. So I think if we disconnect these two, we'll be able to just swing the whole battery door, I guess, wall, whatever you want to call it, out of the way. And then you see there's a lip. We got to lift the battery over, but once we lift it over that lip, we can pull it forward, and then we can disconnect the negative, and then we'll have the battery out. Okay, cool thing about this power connector here is this one, it's a 10 millimeter, but it's captive. So all you gotta do is get it loose. And the other guy, the bigger one, is a 13. So we're gonna, we need a ratchet for this. Oh yeah, okay, he doesn't want to go. He's on there tight. Go gadget, mechanical advantage. All right. Now I can switch. I'm going to guess the last time I did this, I was impatient and I did not take these loose. So I couldn't do that. Which this is definitely the better way to go about this. So now, as you can see, we have a much more clear shot. If I can get this to hook on something. Alright, we may need a bungee cord, but I now have a much more clear shot at actually getting the battery out versus before it would have been a really enormous pain in the rear. So let me figure out a way to pin this down. I can just hook something around something. Would be nice. There, I think yeah, that works. I just hooked the positive terminal around a support bracket or something, and that's providing enough tension that I can work on getting this out. Now, let's get this thing out. Bear in mind, batteries are heavy, and you don't have great positioning here, so be nice to yourself. Go slow. Don't throw out your back. It's not worth it. So let's see if we can get this out. Okay. Okay, a little bit. Okay. So we're far enough forward now that if you look up, we see we have access to the nut for the negative or the ground on the battery, and that should be a 10. So we'll get in there with a 10. Oh, that thing's in the way. Can you please go somewhere? There we go. No, I was on it. Why do we set the Titan? That's no good. Okay, that should be enough. And then we'll just kind of wiggle that off. All right, negative is out of the way. So at this point, we can get ourselves a battery out. And that's it. Battery is now out. This is a good opportunity, if you don't like how messy it is back there, to go ahead and clean. And that's it. Phew. This actually went a lot better than the last time I did this. Taking this door completely off is a big win by removing those power connections. So that is the out. Now later today I'm going to go get a new battery and I will film putting it back in. I mean, I won't go as in depth because there's not as much going on. We already covered all the tricky stuff removing it, but I'll leave that in there. Alright, at this point we've got the battery in, and this box door, or this side of the box, fits into a channel, so it'll pop in, and then you got to bend the side walls out and around to get it to line up and lock in. Don't forget, we had to disconnect these two. Again, that's a 10mm and a 13. Got to put those back on, particularly this. This is a big beefy ground for something, maybe an engine ground. You want to have all that done, and before we throw the positive on there, we want to go ahead and take care of our battery hold down. And also, don't forget, and if you haven't done it at this point, you're going to have to pull your battery back out, but the negative terminal needs to be on and secured at this point, and that's a 10mm. And it'll be a 10mm for the positive when we get to it, and it's also a 10mm for the two nuts that hold the battery clamp in place. Alright, so we've got our power back in. This extra wire is for trailer wiring. I have a hitch on this van, so had to fix that, but get that back on, make sure you're snug. That's a 10mm. And then the air intake goes back in. There is a little locking, it's getting too dark really to see, but over here on the side, you'll see it if you lift apart and look at it, but there's a peg you got to line up over there. There's a peg that has to be lined up right here. It's right there. Yeah, right there. And then don't forget, you need to lay the intake in and then put this, I guess I'll call it a latch, get that fed back in. So you do all that, feed this in. Remember, it starts over here because you've got the 3 tabs that stick into the plastic. Starts there. Be mindful of the PCV, it's going to fight you and get in the way. And then you've got these metal clips that pop into position. Get those in, put your hose back on, and then we're going to need to put all of our PCV stuff back in, like that. And where did that other one go? It ran away on me. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, and this one might be a two-hander, so I'll bring you back. Alrighty. At this point, everything should be back together. Don't forget to tighten your worm clamp that needs to go right there to make sure your air intake is back on, connecting to the plenum and everything. And also, if your battery comes with a little exhaust elbow for escaping hydrogen gas, which is normal as batteries age, don't forget to put that in. And then at that point, put on your battery hat, and you are done. Alright guys, that's going to do it for our remove and replace for the battery on my wife's 2016 Ford Transit Connect. If you got a comment, leave a comment. I like reading the comments. I like responding to the comments. I like learning from comments. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that YouTube stuff. And remember, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. I'll see you guys next episode.